Hi, everybody. Welcome to the UX group conversation. I'm Christy, and I'm the host today. We can go ahead and get started. It looks like, Omar, you have the first couple of questions here.
Yeah, hi, Christy. Thanks for the key review materials. The question is, you talk about learnability as a key challenge that is impacting our system usability score. So what are examples of things that we've discovered that our users are struggling with regarding GitLab learnability?
Yeah, this is a great question. Thank you for asking it. Adam, you've got some stuff in there. I've got some stuff in there, but I'll let you kick it off.
All right, thanks. Omar, first I want to say thank you for populating your question so early. Really appreciate that. So we just completed a couple research studies on this very topic. So the timing's excellent. To answer your questions, so one thing that we learned around one of the struggles is that people learn in multiple ways. What I mean by that is they learn GitLab by reading, by taking seminars, by talking to other people. Structured learning is a big one too, where they have to essentially sign up for step-by-step courses that where they build upon their learnings. And there's a lot that we can do more here by offering more learning material beyond the doc site. And I will say on a positive note, based on my research that I've done, the doc site has been doing a very good job at helping people learn. But there's more we can do beyond that. And Chrissy, you had a note here.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify that doesn't mean that these resources should not be available on the doc site. I think what this comes down to is that there is a lot of content that users want that is not the type of content we currently have on the doc site today. Today, our documentation is very feature focused. And what we're hearing the gap is around larger, for example, jobs to be done, more conceptual information. And documentation is where people will often go to find this type of content. So this is less about location and more about content type. And I got a sneak preview this morning at the decks that Adam and team are creating around the learnability research that they've done. They're wonderful. And there is a lot of really great feedback for our tech writing team in there. So I know he'll be sharing that with them as well. There may be some things that we can go in and just refine based on what we've already learned through qualitative research.
Thanks for adding that, Christy. There's a couple other things I want to share too around struggles. So another one is that our users, they have to find all these resources that I mentioned earlier themselves. And Google is typically their starting point, but today it's not that easy. And a big downside of that is it takes them a lot of time. So they have to search for things. Sometimes they don't even know the proper terminology on what they're searching for. You can imagine what a struggle that might be. And lastly, what I want to talk about is just learning GitLab. It takes longer than initially planned by users. And the main reason for that is because their day-to-day job gets in the way. So they want to learn more about other features, but they just can't really find the time. I think that's probably true for a lot of us too here when we think about it. This also really applies to not only new users, but experienced users too, because they have an idea of like, I have a feeling that GitLab can do more for me, but I just don't really have the time to allocate towards it. So there might be things that we can be doing to surface up some of those other features and learnings a little bit easier for people. And Christy, you had some comments too.
Yeah, just because we got a lot of people in one place, I just wanted to give some updates here. So learnability is a key theme that's surfaced in UX research through SUS and through qualitative research. We also know that learnability is a challenge for our competitors too, but we want to note it's an even bigger challenge for us than it is for our competitors, and we know that. As part of that qualitative research, we do have some guidance from users on the types of content that they want. I put a few examples in the agenda. That is not a comprehensive list, but just to give you a sense of what we're talking about here. I also want to note that in Q4, the tech writing team has a KR to create a tutorials page on the docs site. This is going to be an MVC, and the plan is to initially populate it with existing content. We just want to get a page out there, some place for this content to live where we think people will be able to find it and get as much good content on there as we can. That will not be the end of that project. The idea then is to get contributions from a wide variety of sources to flesh out that content the way that users are asking us to do. And then lastly, Adam is leading the UX research team in creating an epic and associated issues focused on learnability. We'll also be creating a video that we will link to from that epic so we can talk through all of these things that we've learned and that we know, and it'll be documented in inside of our products. Everybody has access to it.
Great, thank you so much for the answer. And it seems like, there's potentially quick wins in the documentation side and then integrating it into the product so people don't have to search on Google to find these things. So that sounds really great. I have a second question as well, which is, how do you see our learnability challenges evolving as we look to mature more categories in the product and get even a wider range of users on board?
Yeah, it's a really thoughtful question. So a complaint that we commonly hear, and we've heard for a very long time, is that our product is already very complex. We hear things like, you keep adding more and more stuff. That's great that you have these features, but it was already complicated to begin with. So the more of that we do, the more risk we run of having a negative impact on learnability. I'm really glad so many of our designers and researchers are here on this call today, because this is something we haven't discussed a lot yet as a department. We will be, but all of this information is just kind of coming together right now. So I'll say one of the things we have to get better at, leading our cross-functional teams in doing, is considering learnability at every stage of the process. So when you're designing an MVC, start thinking about learnability. As that goes into development, make sure, make sure that we are including that and that it doesn't get de-scoped from the MVC. And then lastly, really being thoughtful about our documentation and making sure that we are putting learnability first as we are documenting new things. Jarek, you wanted to add something there.
Yeah, sure. Since it's very closely related, if not directly related, we recently shipped our first iteration to our empty state docs. So up until recently, we've been using a component when there's an empty state and we say, here's what this feature does, check out the docs, or go link out somewhere. So this update really refocuses us to think about, on a case-by-case basis, how can we increase learnability and not just link to docs, even though they're incredibly useful and they're going to be useful in a lot of cases, but what can we do to be more creative, to make things more engaging, to make it easier to understand so that they don't have to be going back and forth and they can understand it right when they see it. So that's just something that I wanted to note. It's our first iteration and we'll be continuing to work on that as well.
Thanks, Jarek. That was a great addition. Omar, do you have any follow-up questions?
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And I'm excited to see that there's a lot of thought being put behind this and research. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again for great questions. Michael.
Hey, Christy. Hey, Adam. Love the deck. That was really informative. Thanks for putting that together. Kind of like tangentially related, buyer and user personas, kind of related to learnability. They're never perfect, but I was just curious if y'all have plans to revisit, update them. I've looked through the handbook. I found some of I'm always suspect of personas. So I was kind of trying to find out okay, well, who made these? What data were we using? And the answer is, I don't know. We're not sure, which makes me be like, okay, well, I'm not going to use them. But yeah, it's kind of like this buyer or potential customer to becoming a user. That's a really important learnability moment. And if we had a single source of truth or just a shared understanding, like this is our understanding from talking to real people, that would be immensely helpful to me. And I was just wondering if that was on your radar.
Well, blind trust in personas is a rookie move, so good on you for being suspicious. Yeah, this is actually really good timing. We are thinking a lot about personas right now. Adam is really been leading the charge on this. Let me turn this over to him.
Yeah. Hey, Michael. So researcher on my team named Michael Oliver, he's been spearheading the effort there because we were recently asked to create a new persona, and we started to dig around a little bit and realize, oh, we don't really have a process for that, which you probably ran across yourself. So we have been working to create a process on creating personas based on data. So mainly based on UX research. So there's I think about a 5-step process. There's a draft. We're just putting together a draft MR for it. Probably this week it will go out. And from that point, I don't know if it's something your team / world might borrow from the buyer personas perspective, but that's totally an option.
Oh, great.
And yeah, to talk about whether we're going to revisit our existing ones, we haven't thought about that, but that's a great idea. So yeah.
That
Yeah,
sounds great. I'll definitely borrow or steal, because everything we've done so far has what we've taken from your team has worked out great. And no rush. Let's do it once and get it right. So hope I'm not rushing things for you.
Not at all.
And steal away. We want you to. That's the point. So that's wonderful that you have. I do want to call out really explicitly, because Adam kind of inferred this in his answer, but really clearly, our UX research team is focused on product users, not buyers.
Yeah.
So, if you don't see us working on buyers, that's why. But would love to have your team engage on that, or marketing in general. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. I'll maybe for Q4s we're focused on something else, but yeah, let's talk about that and tee that up for Q1. Thank you.
Great question. All right, I'm gonna sit quietly and see if we have any more questions. My tolerance for silence is very high, as my department knows, but I want to give everybody a chance because I've been surprised before. People do come up with things kind of after a good 30 seconds or so, but I think it's been long enough. If you do have follow-up questions that you think of later, you know how to find us. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.